Top 8 of this bracket qualify. And another chance on Sunday. It'd be nice to go ahead and get it through here. In the top right, playing for Team Rote, he is the Blue Protoss Goblin. In the bottom left, I don't believe he's playing for anyone right now. Here's the Red Zerg, Nerchio. It's like a Wild West movie where Nerchio is like some gunslinger who's really good and he's disappeared. And then he's come back to deal with the young upstarts, you know what I mean? Looking all cool with their fancy new guns, and Nerchio comes in, spits tobacco off to the side, and just goes pow, 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 pow. At least that's the story I'm going with if Nerchio 3-0 is Goblin, but I actually don't think that will happen. At one point, years ago, Goblin was kind of a meme player, a good player in GM, but still kind of more of a meme player. And then at some point, again, years ago, he actually started doing some normal builds, really working on his macro and his micro, and Roddy's been raising the young lad as far as Starcraft 2 parenting goes for a while. So it's cool to see him on Team Roddy. I think this isn't really announced right now, but Roddy did mention he has 2 players on his team, so Acheron being the other one. Or maybe this was announced first and I missed that one, but anyways, it's obviously very public right now. So I'm not gonna do about that. I do think Goblin's going to be able to take this series. I mean, I haven't seen Nerchio's games, but when you're this experienced, you're Nerchio, who has been at times the best foreigner that StarCraft 2 has had to offer, even when you come back after a long time, if you put any amount of work back into it, you know, you've only been playing weeks, you actually get back up in skill, I would say, fairly quickly. To actually take on people who have been close to the, you know, the competition. Goblin actually got to a round of 16 at one point. To actually beat those guys, even as someone as historically good as Nerchio was, whatever, you probably have to put in months of work. And then I think you would actually start to actually make them sweat a little bit. Just because of the things that they're missing, like the meta and a little bit of their mechanics, right? They still have the knowledge of how to play a tournament. They don't get nervous. They know how to mix up their builds. They know generally what they're still scouting because they're not so far out of the meta. I mean, if Nerchio was coming back from Heart of the Swarm, I'd be like, yeah, this ain't gonna be pretty, but no, that's not the case. So I do give Nerchio a chance here to qualify today. I give him a big chance to qualify on Sunday, since we'll have 8 more players come from today, making that last bracket pretty small. But it's not surprising that Nerchio beat the guys that did to get here. I would be surprised to see him beat Goblin. I think Goblin's got this. He's going to be going for some aggression, Resident Glaives to really trip up Nerchio. I don't know how much Nerchio has had to deal with this of the games he has been playing recently. In 2012, Goblin was 10 years old. Can we not remind ourselves that 2012 was 8 years ago? Good lord. Nerchio's going for a fairly fast lair, actually. 340 lair. Actually, the current trend has been to push off lairs, as the Archon drops have gotten less popular. DTs do still happen, even as a follow-up to this very build we're looking at. But they do come later, and you can build spore crawlers as a response. That's what we typically see anyways, is later layers. Nerchio might just be playing a more old-fashioned way of ZVP, which isn't bad, really. But he will have, he'll have overseers for potential DTs. We're not actually even talking about a DT game. He won't have quite as many roaches, and he won't have quite as many spore crawlers to maybe help against war prisms. Not that that's their main, focus, obviously. But it can sometimes help. So the lair is going to give him some fast roach speed. So let's say theoretically he gets roach speed pretty quickly, which at one point was deemed an answer to fast Resident Glaives. He'll be able to respond to this quicker. and he'll be able to do a counterattack almost immediately. So those are two benefits, but first he has to actually not take an extreme amount of damage from the Adepts, and that could be difficult to do. The Roaches do not have speed yet, they are not accompanied by Lings, so actually catching up to these Adepts is going to be quite difficult to do. And while yes, they would take a fight eventually, actually right now it's a little bit of an imbalance on the unit count, it's not happening yet. I'm being very tricky, just sending in 2 Adepts, and that's it. Doesn't actually get too much, it's a good response, but the reason it's a good response is because the third hatchery dies for it. I think Nerchio's gonna all in. He actually built 3 Overseers. He was very much so expecting the DT follow-up, which is, I mean, 50% chance that's actually going to be the follow-up to give him some credit here, but it's not always the follow-up, that's for sure. Otherwise, he has very limited scouting. So I think his plan is to all in, but that Roach speed took a while to actually make. He had to build Roaches first and foremost. It wasn't like he was on the best economy, and then he lost access to his third hatch. Like, even as he takes the third hatch and builds up his drone count, I still feel like he's just going to all in. But by the time that happens, Goblin will have more than just Adepts. Right now, 10 Adepts, that's all of his army. Wouldn't actually be that great, maybe, against 16 Roaches and reinforcing Roaches, right? But, more Immortals will be added on. More Chardas will be added on. Adepts can provide constant threats to Nerchio's economy, making him even more all-in. And at the very least, can provide buffer for the much more important Immortals. With 3 Overseers, you got a lot of Changelings, I can tell you that. So we got Changeling here, Changeling there, seeing everything. It actually looks like these are intentionally trying to micro out Immortals, but they'll die before that actually becomes an issue, I think. Could be cool, though. Could be cool. Warp Prism is still available in the bottom right, but keep in mind, it's not only Adepts not helping on the defense, it's also the Warp Prism not helping on the defense. Changelings do die or slaughtered, either one, and Nerchio is going to have to deal with 2 Immortals. The Link's going to try and jump on top of this, hold him in place so the Corrosive Bios do maximum damage, and maybe Goblin pushed out at the exact wrong time. He doesn't quite get surrounded, but he takes a lot of upfront damage. His third Immortal actually rallies into the fight. That is too bad right there, and the shield overcharge might be good. There actually looks like there might be too many Roaches and Ravagers. I really thought Goblin's going to have a handle on this, but Nerchio is trying to prove me wrong. Corrosive Bios continuing to come down. Shield battery's out of the overcharge now, and will eventually run out of juice. The probes are starting to die here, and the Warp Prism, I think, was actually recalled, or, oh my god, it was actually killed. It went to the Queens and died, and Nerchio is really doing his best to prove me wrong. Now, a third Immortal comes back again here to replace that lost one. The Ravager is still available. Nerchio, if he can just kind of eke out a couple more protective units that can actually surround these Immortals, maybe he could cut it, but I think Goblin, by saving his 2 Immortals, by having a decent economy with some decent production, is actually going to be able to weather the storm and be okay. But, oof, that was a little scary, man. That was a little scary. Nerchio has 12 more Roaches on the way, but I actually don't think Roaches are going to be a serious thing here. I'd be more scared if, like, 40 Lings were on the way, you know? Or 30 Lings. As it is, I think Nerchio is not going to be able to cut it. 4 Immortals, some Sentries, maybe a Warp Prism should come after this 5th Immortal. I think that might be the best plan. And Goblin, well, he did lose some probes. He still has a good count of them. 57 workers to 41, 3 base to 3. Now working on Blink and +1, where Nerchio is absolutely still all-inning. Nerchio setting up a concave here. Best case scenario. Goblin has been seeing non-stop reinforcements. I'm surprised the Queens haven't tried to make their way over here. Warp Prism was made. I like that. It's actually getting a scout. It's going to need to come back and help out these Immortals, though, as they retreat back into their third base. The Natural suddenly becomes under attack. Good force field, which will only last a little while against the Corrosive Bile if Nerchio chose to go for it. He doesn't. Goes right for the heart of the army. Tries to Corrosive Bile down some units. Does get a couple of units with the Corrosive Bile, as well as damages that shield battery. There it goes, actually. The overcharged shield battery no longer helping. Immortals being segmented from the rest of their army go down, and these Immortals all have their shields popped. Nerchio once again making things work out here. Where's that damn Warp Prism? It did not come back very quickly at all. I guess he thought he was in a good position and wanted to use it offensively, but that actually might be a terrible choice. He could have easily saved 2 or 3 Immortals with that Warp Prism micro. Now his shield batteries are out of juice. He no longer has an overcharge. His probes are once again being pulled in here. He's down to 1 Immortal being microed by the Warp Prism. I cannot believe that Nerchio is actually doing this. I think Goblin, maybe some overconfidence coming into play here. Having his army where it was, not using his Warp Prism. Obviously, the miss micro on his first Warp Prism was also a big deal, but thought he had a decent time to stabilize. He's trying to get another Immortal, but the third Nexus is absolutely going to be torn down, and because of that, now Nerchio can actually macro out of this. He now has more workers than his opponent. He's up a base like a Zerg should be, and he still has all of these expensive units, the Ravagers specifically. He still has them alive. My god. Well, this is really just giving credit to my whole spiel about why our old players, when they come back, they're actually pretty good, even with limited practice time. When it comes to winning tournaments, when it comes to winning qualifiers, Nerchio's mid-game all-in is looking beautiful here, and now he has a follow-up, 10 more drones on the way, as well as a Spire. Goblin might be able to hold the onslaught of Roach Ravager, because, hey, Immortal Warp Prism is pretty damn good, but it's not good against the Spire. That is the real kill move. And although Goblin did manage to fit in that Blink and +1, he never got any units that really benefited from the Blink. He's trying to get some Archons now with the Templar Archives being done, but while Archons do actually help against Mutas for sure, they struggle to catch up to the Mutas. I think at this point now it's Goblin's turn to all in. I think he's absolutely screwed whether he knows it or not. That Spire, if he scouted that Spire, I think he would say he was screwed and just tries to all in right here, right now. But unfortunately this Observer, it's got a lot of decent scouting. It has actually not gotten in to see any technology. Goblin is going to all in. I think that is the right call no matter what he knows about. He's just kind of screwed here without that third Nexus. Trying to do some return damage. If he grabs Nerchio's third, then maybe it'll stabilize it again, except for that Spire being available. More Archons being morphed in. Not too many force fields to help out here. And against Ravagers, you really need a surplus of force fields to actually use them. And dodging with the Corrosive Bile, but is leaving a portion of his army a little bit alone to the south. Nerchio is not trying to build any mutas. They could help take out the Warp Prism, but it's all just about defending this main push right here, right now. No needless gambling with building expensive mutas that don't necessarily help against main engagements. Just all to the roaches. Trying to get as many Corrosive Bile down as possible. Goblin needs to make sure to save his Warp Prism. It's getting awfully dangerous. Nerchio's headed for it. Actually, no, he's not going to go for the snipe on the Warp Prism. It gets to turn into that micro mode, and it's going to start burying the Archons and the Immortals, and my god, this game is flipping crazy. Goblin actually might just be able to do it. The micro on the Warp Prism that was missing defensively is here offensively, and it is looking beautiful. The Archons not quite dying here. The concave of the Roach Ravager looks like it might just be too good. Nerchio had 15 more Roaches in reinforcement. It looked good for a second, but Goblin has not been able to break Nerchio's back, and now the Mutas can be made, and he does not have a third Nexus. He has no answer to Mutas, and I think once he sees the Mutas, he will actually tap out, but damn good attempt at the attack. He had a lot of strong units, but Nerchio just had enough of an economy to actually continue building that decent Roach Ravager force. Good catch on the Observer. The Mutas would have taken care of it, but the whole point is to let him scout the Mutas at the last possible second. This might look okay for Goblin. He's like, you know what? This is not a lot of Roach Ravager. You know what? I can do this. Oh, well, can I do this? At the magic box on top of these Archons, the Warp Prism can only micro for so long. The Zealots on top of the Roaches with the Immortals are doing a damn good job against them, but the Mutas will eventually take out the last reinforcing anti-air units and clean up everything else if it truly gets that desperate. It almost has. You know, the Roaches are taken care of, the Ravagers are starting to die, but Goblin can't afford to defend against the Mutas. I think that's what it comes down to at the very end of the day. If Nerchio didn't have the ability to reinforce the Roaches, which he is, even if he couldn't, the Mutas just eventually would have been too much. GG. Would have taken too much control, and Nerchio does win game number 1, but oof, I think Goblin just was... I think you need to be reminded a little bit of how powerful Nerchio can be, because otherwise I still, like... I think he was in a great position as far as I've seen games play out like that, personally. When Adepts don't do a whole lot, because, you know, in before someone's like, well, the Adepts didn't do anything, it's usually not really what is the most important, which is honestly why it is frustrating to play against that. Like, I get why Zergs, especially some Zergs, are like, fucking build. Because even if the Adepts don't get 20 drones, even if they don't get 10 drones, they constantly threaten you, they constantly harass you. It's something that you usually have to build against very early on. You know, we see people delay their layers, they go for spine crawlers, they build lings and roaches, they're stuck around the same exact worker count as their opponent for a very long time. And then by the time that they are ready to push, they say, I've dealt with the Adepts, I don't worry about losing all my drones, I have a big enough army to push. The Protoss player has a 3rd Nexus, shield batteries, and 2 or 3 Immortals. And that actually still happened in that game. Even though Nerchio didn't take damage, cleaned up the Adepts, had a fast lair to do roach speed with his push. Goblin still had Immortals, shield batteries, and he could have had a Warp Prism to defend as well. And at the end of the day, maybe that was really the difference. Maybe him looking to go for the harassment with the Warp Prism was the worst of 2 ideas, 2 possibilities, especially because it was killed by a bunch of queens. Pretty sick game overall, but I think that's that was a bit of a slap to Goblin to remind him that Nerchio is damn scary. We're on Everdream for game number 2 in the top right as the blue Protoss. He is Goblin. In the bottom left as the red Zerg, it is Nerchio. I think if the exact same game happens, I really do think Goblin is okay. What makes Colossus anymore? I don't get it. It's pretty simple, actually. I'll try to explain it simply and quickly. Colossus take too long and are too expensive to get to for the value they add to your army. Colossus need a robotics bay, they need their upgrade, and they need to be even more protected than an Immortal, right? An Immortal alone is probably as good as a Colossus alone. Both of them get bopped pretty quickly. But an Immortal covered by 4 Zealots, a Sentry, and a Warp Prism is probably a lot better than a Colossus covered by the same thing. Especially because we're talking about units that don't die very easily to Colossus beams. So Colossus just aren't worth what they provide. If you know your opponent is the type of player who always goes Ling Bang Ling Hydra, you could maybe say, okay, I'm going to go Colossus, and we've seen that occasionally. It's not totally out of 2020's meta. But even with that, it probably would have been better to try and like hit them something early. Like do an Archon drop to take advantage of their lack of roaches type thing. They try and do that as opposed to actually just go to Colossus. And also, unfortunately, as good as Colossus are against Lings, and as nice as it is to have Splash that's consistent, as opposed to Storm that obviously runs out, they also don't do that well against Banelings. Banelings are actually a good catch-all unit. I think we know that.
Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
But especially against Colossus. It's like, because we see Banelings as morphing from Lings, even when we know for a fact that they are not light units, I think there's a tendency to forget. We see Lings go down, we think Banelings going to go down to the same thing, and then suddenly they just live for flipping forever. So, I don't know, some of the reasons why Colossus don't make it in a way into the games too often. Thank you very much, Rotterdam, for the 33 months watching one of his players and his StarCraft 2 son play against one of the oldest names in StarCraft 2, Nerchio, all the way back to some of the first Korea vs. World events. It wasn't called GSO vs. the World, but yeah, Korea vs. the World. Very old player, and it's just come back almost as like, you know, yeah, why not? You know, StarCraft's a fun game. I like it. Yeah, okay, sure. It's actually kind of funny, because, like, of the players you would think would continue to enjoy StarCraft even after their pro gaming career, Nerchio actually kind of seemed like a guy who wouldn't. You know, almost like an Idra, who was playing it purely for competition, and once it was no longer competitive, he just lost interest. Apparently not. Nerchio actually just likes playing the game. Thank you very much to Uikazu for the Twitch Prime sub as well. Are Colossus good against Hydras? Yeah. I think their benefit is on high ground and a choke. As a, you know, I mean, I hesitate to use the word support unit. That's not giving them a whole lot of credit, but like, yeah, kind of. Or Immortals can be a lot more in your face. So I saw Goblin slapped in that Twilight Council, and I just kind of assumed it would be President Glaives again, but no, not at all. Actually, a very different two-base attack than what we're used to seeing. Not Archon drop into fast charge lots, not Resident Glaives and DTs. Like, it is actually going to be a two-base Blink build, which does happen occasionally, but probably even less, I would say, than Colossus, as far as I see. But I think it also comes down to personal preference for who uses this all in against Zerg players anymore. And apparently Goblin is one of those guys. He's got Blink, he's just revealed how many Stalkers he had, so Nerchio should be able to figure out what's going on. Nerchio has not been getting a whole lot of scouting, to be honest. Never sending in a Suicide Overlord, so this is the first time he knows about it. And unfortunately, he did just make 9 drones. He also doesn't have too much supply to work with to build a bunch of roaches. 2 more Overlords are on the way, and that's going to be when he spams the R button, but it almost looks like he's trying to give up the third. Okay, there's the pull on the drones. I was like, I think he has to give up the third. Unfortunately, those Overlords they're talking about, they're being denied here. Ling's actually coming back from, I don't know where they came back from, actually, but that's actually pretty important. Lanes get very tricky for Stalkers to deal with, right? Stalkers aren't like Marines where they just tear Lings down too quickly. Their shots are actually not that fast, and they're more suited to dealing with roaches that are armored and a bunch of pesky little Lings, so that's pretty important. What's also important is that Nerchio is still supply blocked, only just now getting unsupply blocked, but by very little. And once again, another Overlord goes down. He's trying to pull these back, but it looks like he will just go ahead and lose that third hatchery. Just totally an unexpected push. If this was Resonating Glaives, the Adepts don't quite threaten bases as much, right? You kind of wait for their harassment to start. But, funnily enough, the last game, literally the Adepts, the harassing Adepts, did actually get a third, just like this game. The Goblin had intentions to go to a third base. He didn't continue the aggression. This time, no intention to get that third base. Not yet, anyways. He wants to go for the kill. Nerchio is once again supply blocked, and his Lings have gone through the middle of the map, probably looking for a counterattack. They're not going to find it. They're going to have to come back and try and help out, but already so many of their buddies are being killed. This might just be too late. Too little and too late. With the Stalker micro for Blink and War Prison coming through as well. I think Nerchio just was very ill prepared for this attack. That's just a little bit, well, it's a lot more rare. A lot rarer than anything else that comes off the 2 bases for the Protoss. He's gonna try and jump on top of this army, but really it's a pretty pitiful army for Nerchio. Goblin's feeling so confident he can blink forward, and that is gonna be game. Nerchio doing a very similar build to what he did in the first game, that faster lair. He was getting roach speed, really didn't help out very much against those roaches. Against those Stalkers, sorry. And didn't have enough units prepared. Phew. My apartment complex is like apparently gonna reopen their pools eventually, like soon. I don't know, man. Sharing the same even, you know, chlorine-filled water, the same water with like 20 other people just isn't, I don't really want to do that. To be fair, I've never liked pools in general, swimming pools. I love the ocean, and a lake is nice. But pools, ugh, I've always found them kind of gross. I want my gym to open. That's where I'm a baby. But I'm trying to be a mature baby. Trying to make my tea without burning down the apartment. Trying to hold off on getting my hair cut because COVID. I'm trying not to become the Jabba the Hutt Starcraft 2 caster. By overeating and not exercising. Trying to. I don't know if I'm succeeding. Third game here on Submarine, our shortest map in the map pool, the bottom right as the blue Protoss for Team Roddy. It's Goblin. The top left is the red Zerg. It is Nerchio. He's back. He's risen from the dead. One of those guys that didn't actually make an official retirement post. I don't believe so anyways. Which in StarCraft 2 land actually gives more credit to him actually retiring. Whenever you see someone make a retirement post in StarCraft 2, it's more like I'll return later post. Whenever you see someone not make anything and just slowly disappear, that actually, that often sticks. And Nerchio really did. Nerchio didn't just, like, do... Well, I mean, it was kind of, yeah, it was kind of both, actually. Like, he did start performing worse and worse, and then eventually he just stopped trying to qualify for anything. But, I don't know, I feel like it was actually a pretty short amount of time between him being one of the always possibly round of 16 players, right? There was always a possibility to actually not playing anymore. To me, it seemed kind of fast. But time is a human concept, and it makes no sense right now. Right? So, there's that. Thank you for the little bitty booze, Captain. Didn't Ninja, like, hate StarCraft 2? Well, yeah. I mean, I know people are comparing them to Artosis, and they do actually share a few qualities back in the Brood War days especially, but... Idra, I would say, maybe even didn't... Like, he was definitely a Brood War elitist. He thought it was a better game, for sure. But, I would not be surprised if people would argue that he also didn't really like Brood War. I don't know enough of him during that time to say yes or no. But, okay. He definitely didn't respect StarCraft 2, that's for sure. Blinky boy. I think Goblin is I think this is a good build for what Nerchio was showing, which is faster lair, like I've been talking about. Like, not like super fast, but faster lair. And then, like, 48 drones, I think is kind of his target goal. And then he might actually always be planning to do a Roach Ravager attack from them, but the last game it was stopped short. But anyways, that he's not scouting, I think is the biggest thing that Goblin is trying to take advantage of here. So any attack on the mid game, or the 2-base attack, is going to be a little dangerous to Nerchio. Especially if he has to decide between it being kind of more of like a harassment thing or an actual dedicated attack. Can't really forget that last game, so much of the poor defense, and at the end of the game it really seemed one-sided. Part of that was that his overlords kept dying. It was very unfortunate timing in that he didn't realize it was happening until it was too late, but also that he lost overlords after being close to being supply blocked in the first place. Like, 6 overlords went down, which is not something that you easily replace. You don't make 6 overlords at once, and then don't mind if they die. Even a laser doesn't really do that until a little while longer. So that was one of the suckiest things about that. If they didn't die, if he's allowed to just produce army as consistently as he usually does, it's a lot closer. It's a lot closer. Probably has some time to build some Ravagers, which can help out. And I think it's very different. So we're probably going to get to see if that was the biggest difference in this game. So again, Nerchio was kind of going up to 48 workers, I want to say, last game. He had just made a round of workers when the attack hit. I think that's already a difference. Nerchio doesn't see much. Maybe the same opening units, but otherwise doesn't see much. But it looks like this game, he is just cutting workers at 42 already here. His Lings are set up for a run-by again. Adept is holding the line, but she wouldn't hold forever. There's easy access to a warp-in, obviously, so just gonna come back and help deal with the Stalkers, and now he sees that it is the Stalkers. So he's got Overlords to work with, no Overlords on the front lines to take down either. And he's going to be looking for a surround on this particular choke. Nerchio, he's been building up an army. He's got almost twice the armor supply until these Stalkers got warped in. And he's going to go for the surround. It's actually not going to be too much of a surround as Blink is available, of course. But getting it to blink backwards is always a nice start, and they can't blink in the defensive micro ways they usually want to, and this actually doesn't look to be a great start at all. Kind of complete reversal of the last game, where Goblin was hitting him in such a surprise fashion, catching overlords, catching third bases, catching drones. Reverse starts. Nerchio catches him off guard, forces him to retreat, forces him to take a lot of damage, and Goblin actually is already transferring out of this build faster than last game. Can't quite reach for a third Nexus yet, but gas is coming down. He'll be adding on more technology. Nerchio has that roach speed because he goes through the layer timings that he does. He's not going to have any upgrades, but his roaches are going to be capable of immediately counterattacking and actually chasing these stalkers down, where a lot of other Zergs would still be waiting on even building their lair. I was talking about the shortest map, so the units over here, very quick to the counter. And the units back at home are going to be very quick to the sandwich, which might be what Nerchio is going to try and set up for me. Unless I saw a sandwich with an actual direct attack. I think seeing that many stalkers, however, Goblin actually adding gases, but never adding on anything else, is going to maybe cause Nerchio to hesitate. Now that Goblin is kind of set up defensively, he's in control, he's not surprised. It's like, yeah, I don't want to push into that many stalkers. A very bold blink forward to catch the retreating units. Nerchio not going into any Ravagers. Not that they're as helpful as they are against maybe like force fields, right? But usually you see at least a couple come down here. Not this time. Just pure numbers. What I really like seeing is the continued production of the Lings. It can get really difficult to do that as time goes on. You're pulling your Queens forward to reinforce. Lings are very larva intensive. So far, Nerchio's doing a good job or decent job on the macro behind this. He's trying to catch the army once again, but there's so many stalkers. Like three times as many stalkers as the last time he retreated up this ramp. Goblin's not taking as much damage. It is picking off units every time he does pull back. 25 roaches, 32 stalkers, only a handful, only 2 queens. Literally 2 queens, so he has started to miss some of his injects. He is starting to bank some cash. And no Ravagers even try and tear down that Wolf Prison, which might have been able to help. Nerchio is struggling a little bit against the stalkers, but now he finds maybe a decent start. The Lings have been depleted, and the roaches go down so quickly after the Ling fodder goes down. Goblin has found Nerchio's weakness, man. A 2-base blink all in is too good, even with Nerchio getting a better head start there. XD rhymes with GG, so that's something. Thank you, Darwin Award winner, for the bits. Zerg is pretty boring in Wings. Well, I think you could really argue that all of the races were boring in Wings. Wings was just kind of a... It was a start for Starcraft 2. It was a start. Absolutely the first year of Starcraft 2. The first 6 months especially for Starcraft 2. I think even if I had known Brood War very much as an esport when I first got into Starcraft 2, even I would have been like, yeah, Starcraft 2's not as good. But, yeah. To say that Zerg was a boring race in Wings is like, I don't know, I've always thought of Protoss as the boring race in Wings. A very abusive race as well. 100% I was a Protoss hater. I still don't necessarily like that they stuck with the design of Protoss that they did. And by that I mean the warp-ins, but I think the ways of, like, you know, controlling that design has actually worked out quite well. And now I really like, I immediately started to like Protoss in Legacy of the Void. Even with the Adept stupidity, I loved the idea they were going with. That it was less, you know, just big old defending death ball on 2 bases that sometimes didn't need a third until 15 minutes because, you know, the economies were different. And into more gateway production, more flexibility, more base taking. So I'll always say that Protoss was the more boring race in the beginning of StarCraft 2. But that's just one person's opinion. We are on Death Aura for potentially the last map in the top left. Going for Blinky Boys into Blinky Boys. It is Goblin. The bottom right has the red Zerg. It is a Nerchio. I don't know, I'm getting pretty sold on this only build Stalker thing. Yeah, Goblin only building Stalkers against Nerchio is winning. And then we also had a PvP where Grail only built Stalkers against Roddy and also won. So maybe there's something there.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the overlord.
I controlled my unit slightly differently. My pylon was in a slightly different secret location. God. Shaw. Thank you, Eric Chung, for the Twitch Prime sub. I swear to God, I used to have a best friend who had the same last name, and her brother was named Eric, like I swear. So weird if it was the same guy. Wings is super exciting. I guess. I mean, I guess the other caveat is that I was Terran from, like, very start of Wings of Liberty. I was Terran, right? Because it was the campaign. And I'd played Terran in Brood War on the N64. And then I was Zerg for a year. And I shared all of the opinions that Idra had about the Protoss race back then. Thought it was a really dumb matchup. ZVP especially was a dumb matchup. Didn't mind ZVT so much. And then I changed to Terran. I changed back to Terran around 2012, around the Queen patch. And the rest is history, right? So maybe my impressions from that expansion were tainted from being a Zerg in the ZVP era and then a Terran during the Brula Nefesta era. The excitement for the first 6 months, I agree, was exciting for players who weren't, you know, fans of Brood War esports. Compared to how Brood War was by 2010, it was actually really bad. Protoss was fine before Depot, before Rax. I love it. I just love that that's what you've reduced the game design, you know, around. I'm not even saying necessarily that you're wrong. I've never given it much thought, but yeah, in Brood War you can build a Rax before a Depot, and it's pretty helpful. There's some cheese builds that kind of start off with that, and that did occur for Starcraft 2. But that was also like, I mean, there's been so many changes, guys, in Starcraft 2, especially for the first 6 months of Wings of Liberty. Any impulse crystals was added, stim was reduced and then increased, barracks time production was increased, decreased, warp gate time was decreased, increased, like so many things changed. But if we can blame a lot of StarCraft 2's faults in certain eras to the Queen buff, then I guess we might also have to take a look at Rax before Depot. We got something very different happening here. Goblin looked like he had found a secret to defeating Nerchio with the Blink Stalker. I mean, Nerchio was prepared last game. He had stopped at 42 drones. I mean, you could even say that roach speed can be a benefit against the build he was doing if you actually get it and also have a lot of roaches. And it has still worked out. But he's going to change it up here on Death Aura. He's going to be true to the Roddy team name and its nice little cute little logo. And go into Double Phoenix with +1 weapons. Nerchio will not anticipate this because he has not been scouting again. I have not emphasized that enough. He's not been scouting. The scouts this game were the Lings. Now, they did see the Phoenix, so that is a little bit of advance notice, but not by very much. There are 3 Spore Crawlers down. And a couple more Queens are just produced. We're talking about double pumps here, so this will only be enough for so long. And if Nerchio isn't going to, like, literally attack right now with Roach Link, then he's not going to have an attack that the Phoenix can't help defend. Their Nexus is on the way, shield battery to help out the fence as well. Phoenix have been getting some scouting done, right? So they saw no roaches, they saw no lings. Goblin actually isn't really gonna have to deal with anything anytime soon. It's just Nerchio trying to drone through this. So a very different game than the last game, which is good, because Goblin's definitely doing a different game. So Nerchio is not even going to bother adding on like any roaches. He might not even go for roach speed here. Maybe he'll transfer over into Ling Baneling Hydra. But first, bump up those numbers, bump up the drones, get a 4th base, so Phoenix can't do very much about, and try not to take damage, which so far he's actually done a very good job about that. You know, the 2 queens, 1 spore crawler each was good against the initial 6 Phoenix. And now getting 2 at each base and a lot of queens, 3 more on the way actually. Okay. Just lift all the queens. That kind of works out sometimes. Rearranging his spore crawlers. This one finished in the nick of time. This one's going to help out as well. The queens might still die. How many Phoenix have died in this process? Not as many as Nerchio would like. I can tell you that much. Still at 11 Phoenix. Many of them injured. Many of them perhaps missing shields. Actually, not even that many. 6 Phoenix got injured. 3 overall died. 6 queens. Without the queens helping the spore crawlers, the Phoenix are going to get bolder and bolder about picking off the drones here, even going for the overlords, feeling very confident indeed. Nerchio taking damage. He otherwise, he really didn't want to. I mean, he was doing a great job initially, but at some point, Goblin was going to get bold enough to do exactly what he just did. Now he's moving on to Zealots. Nerchio's going to try and add on the +1 melee and go for a Spire. Is that Spire scouted?
Successful.
No, not quite. Not quite. So that could be a big... That could be a big deal. I think Goblin's also scouted no Hydra production and scout the Spire. So he might have already been feeling the Spire response, which I went over this in that Roddy game. That, you know, it seems like it's the dangerous thing to do. But if you really have not started up Hydras at all, if your queens aren't protecting your bases at all, if they just died, for instance... Getting Hydras is probably more difficult than getting those Corruptors. The Corruptors at least have that base armor to help against the Phoenix if they're popping out one at a time. They can also kind of hide, you know, behind these crannies, and Hydras can't really do that. They can't fly. And the straight up Hydras are actually kind of terrible against Phoenix in those early episodes, so you are kind of forced to go into Spire and play into the air game that Goblin is so far dominating. 10 more drones go down. We're talking about 25 drone losses in total, but Nerchio has been droning through the harassment, so it's still not a bad worker count. He will eventually have upgraded Lings as well, and Goblin, surprisingly, has not stopped making Phoenix. At some point, you just have enough Phoenix, you know what I mean? I feel like having 18 Phoenix is enough. If you come up to 20, maybe he could have added on Archons a bit faster and more upgrades a bit faster, but it is his prerogative. It's his pierogi. 5th base is on the way. Ling's starting to set up for at least a denial on a potential 4th base, which it looks like Goblin is taking. Very coincidentally, Nerchio's maybe going to get a freebie bop on this. Nope, just a couple probes, long distance mining. So at least they kind of alerts Goblin and respond with some Zealots. Zealots are not at all upgraded, so these Lings are going to destroy them. Oh, that's where all the Zealots are. I was like, you know, I feel like he's been building Zealots for a while. That didn't seem like a lot of Zealots. Well, that's because they're all over here. Now, again, they're still not upgraded. So, like, Nerchio's upgraded Lings are going to be fantastic. As long as they get any type of surround, I feel. Although, we're not just talking about the Zealots, are we? If you were just talking about the Zealots, I think the Lings can do it, but it's not just the Zealots anymore. Archons are morphed in, more Zealots are on the way. No way denying that Warp Prism. And yeah, I guess, you know, eventually the Phoenix could actually start lifting Lings if they wanted to. Lings are on top of Archons, almost full surround there, so they probably will go down too. +1 melee, kind of a big deal. The drones have gone down to the natural, the Queen has gone down to the natural. 14 roaches are on the way, but it seems a little bit too late, and with the Archons, with the reinforcements, the Lings actually have been chopped to bits. Nerchio might have 6 bases, but he no longer has the drones to work with it. Spineclaws have come up from the main base to help out, but now his 3rd base is under attack. Spore Crawl is going down, drones going down. Nerchio did not have enough to deal with this initially. His Lings could have been a nice first line of defense, but his roaches came out way too late for that. GG Goblin with the 3-1 over Nerchio. My Wild West story didn't work out very well. But if Nerchio plays again on Sunday, I don't know, I feel like he's really got a shot to qualify. I'm glad to see Goblin qualify. He's one of the guys that I expected to, but always nice to do it before the last chance. And that will be that.